Hey everybody, how's everyone holding up out there? It's May 1st at the time of this recording. So I think we've been in quarantine, at least up here in Pennsylvania. I know they shut down schools. I think it was May 15th or something. So 6 or 7 weeks probably. So I hope everyone's hanging in there. But something came up for me recently that I thought, oh, I bet other people are dealing with this. And so I wanted to share with you. And the issue would be for maybe if there's two parents who maybe used to both work outside of the home and now one or both is not doing that anymore and is having to work from home or is not working at all. And you have kids. And so several examples of this. This is often a conversation that has to be had if someone has been deployed and out of the home and then they come back home and there's that re-entering period and figuring out how parenting is working and how stuff is working. But it even can happen. So a couple of times in my life when it's happened is when I was younger, my dad traveled internationally for like 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And so I thought it was great because my mom and I were thick as thieves and we would go do all the things that my dad didn't really like to do anyways. And so it was a lot of fun for me. But when he would come home, like I was probably a teenager, but I didn't like that he would come home and then like the rules would change, right? Like, so mom and I had our own understanding of how things worked. And then he would come home and then everything had to shift. Another example of this was when I was a stay-at-home mom with little kids and my husband would work crazy hours he was in sales at the time. I would have been with the kids all day and I had like a routine and a structure that we did. And when he came home, like it felt like the rules would change. And so that could be confusing for the kids. Well, this can happen in a situation like this too. I'm working with from home. I'm stuck with the kids all day. I shouldn't say stuck, but I'm blessed to have the kids home. No, I'm stuck with the kids all day. And then when he comes home, it's hard for him to realize that things are different. I mean, he knows, but like he's not here. He's busy working. So the kids aren't at school. They're not with their friends. So I've adjusted a lot of things to help us get through the day, right? So maybe some of the rules are more lax. Maybe some of them are harder. And so this isn't a problem as long as we sit down and have a conversation about it. And so this is what I would recommend to, especially like military families or like you said, any of the other situations we've kind of talked to where one parent's been gone for a while or out of the house or extended periods of time. You just have to have a conversation, and we call it kind of renegotiating the contract. No one likes to think of it this way, but when we enter into a relationship, a marriage and a family, there's this contract that we've entered into. The problem is it's usually unspoken, right? We don't sit down, barring like the deal breakers. We don't usually sit down and say, this is what I think marriage is going to be like. And especially if you haven't been in that kind of a relationship before, you don't necessarily know. You might have it in your mind what you think it's going to be like, and you might talk to your fiance and y'all think you're going to be on the same page, but there's so many things that come up that you don't know are going to come up or you never would have thought about that you needed to talk about. If you're one of my clients, you may have heard the story about coat hangers on the doorknob. So you know what I'm talking about. I never in a million years thought I would have to find out my husband's opinion on coat hangers on the doorknob. But I will tell you, it took probably 6 years for me to quit putting hangers on the doorknob because I didn't know that was like a thing, but I no longer put hangers on the doorknob. So there's these unspoken like rules that happen in a relationship, but sometimes we have to sit down periodically and renegotiate these things and say, hey, so I never really thought about it before, but I've noticed X, Y, and Z. And can we talk about it? And then you kind of renegotiate, well, I can do this for you. Or, oh yeah, I just have always done it that way, but I don't have to do it that way. It could be a little thing like, if you're boiling water for tea, do you boil the water in the microwave or on the stove? You probably do whatever was done in your house growing up. But that's it's a funny thing. Cutting up spaghetti. This is another one. I did not grow up in a house where we cut up our spaghetti. I was taught at a young age how to eat spaghetti, like by rolling it on a fork. There's another person in my family who still cuts up his spaghetti. And that's not right or wrong, right? No, it's fascinating to me that it can take a long time for you to like observe some of these things or notice some of these things. But it's not a problem if you sit down and talk about, I noticed that you are doing this, and I'm wondering, like, that is kind of, impeding on this or whatever. Can we have a conversation? So same thing with right now, and the parenting and the rules or whatever. And it's not that the person who's been gone comes back and has to not do what they normally did. But I think it's setting them up for failure if you don't take the time to explain to them what it's like when they're not there. So, for example, right now, my kids have a star chart. It's a way for them to earn, based on their behavior, mind coins is what they want. I don't even know what that is, but that's okay. And so if this is something I'm going to do because it makes my life easier during the day, trying to get them through school, get them through whatever the things are that we're having to do for the day, my husband needs to know about that so that if they do something that would hinder them from getting mind coins, and I say, okay, that, you're losing a coin for the day or a star for the day, then he needs to know what that is. What am I talking about? So that he can either use the same language or just reinforce the same rules. If I leave the house for some reason, maybe I just go on a walk or whatever, and they have a behavior that can have that consequence, he needs to know that so he can have that ability to say, take off a star or no stars or whatever. So hopefully that makes sense. But it's not that the person who's been gone isn't going to have a voice. They just need to understand what's happening when they're not there so that they can help continue that forward. One of the biggest parenting issues I see is the lack of consistency. Whether that's parents coming in and complaining about their children's behavior or whatever, or if it's the kids complaining about their parents, the number one thing is a lack of consistency. And it's so detrimental to kids because then they're left not knowing, who do I listen to? Who do I believe? I have to act this way with this parent and this way with this parent. And it's very frustrating for them, and especially if they're younger, because their brain can't comprehend. They know enough to know that it's uncomfortable and it's not right, but their brains aren't going, oh, mommy and daddy are fighting, or mommy and daddy aren't on the same page. So I just want to encourage you that you may need to sit down with your spouse and have that conversation of, hey, this is how, I've been having to discipline. This is how I've been handling this situation, or I've instituted this new thing where they have to do this now before they can do this. Whatever it is, then that way you can have a conversation and both be on the same page, and then continue to be that united front that, hopefully you're striving for. So I just wanted to share that with you. But it's, really important and helpful to just sit down on occasion, especially if you're finding yourselves butting heads and maybe one person's feeling undermined, or the other person isn't feeling heard, whatever that looks like in your relationship. I think it's really important to sit down and talk about what this is like, and vice versa too. If that person who's still having to leave the house, maybe they're an essential worker or whatever, understand that this is a very high stress time for them too, and their landscape has likely changed. So even though it seems like to the person who's staying home now, well, they're still just going to work every day. Like nothing's changed for them. Things probably have changed for them. Priorities have probably changed. I think everybody's stress level is really high right now. And so try and have some grace for them too, and understand, I think everybody's more tired right now. That's kind of the consensus that I'm hearing. So more stressed, more tired, probably gonna have a shorter fuse to deal with things, or that maybe they're shutting down, maybe they're turning inward and they don't have the energy to expend at home. So just sit down and have that conversation. Check in with each other. How are you feeling with this? What is going on with you with this? Here's what it's like at home. Here's what it's like at work. And just go from there. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. It's a very important technique, like I said, that we use in specific situations, but I think it fits for coronavirus and quarantine. And if you have someone who is not stuck at home, who's not staying, who doesn't have the luxury of just being able to stay safe at home, and maybe the other person does, or is having to, for childcare reasons or whatever, I think it's important to sit down and just talk about what things look like in this new landscape. Because who knows? I mean, if we already know we're not going back to school, who knows what the summer's going to look like? So whatever you did over the summer, if you needed childcare, if you sent them to summer camp, we still haven't heard that that's even an option yet. So this may continue until the fall if we get to go back to school. So I think it's important to take the time to sit down and talk about it. So if you have any questions, y'all know how to find me. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm still seeing people virtually. Hopefully we will be able to see people in person. My office is big enough that we can have the 6 feet apart. But when that's safe, we'll get that up and running again as well. So, all right, y'all take care. I love you. Hang in there. Bye-bye.